Welcome. The last time we met, we were talking about freedom of expression and whether or not there should be any limits to freedom of expression. And I thought we had a really great discussion about some of the reasons why people should be allowed to fully express themselves in a democracy and some of the reasons why maybe we should have some limits. So today we're going to look at this issue a little bit more deeply. And we're also going to look at not just the protection of free speech, but the protection of association. Which means that I should be able to join with a group of others who share my views, and that's my right. So that's when we have freedom of association. So we're going to look at this issue with two cases. The first you're going to read about is a case from the United States, and you're going to read how the courts in the United States ruled. The second is a current issue in Ukraine. And it's the issue of the Ukrainian Nationalist Defense Group. And there hasn't been a decision on this group and whether or not they should have free speech or freedom of association. But for our purposes today, for our debate, we're going to take the position that the Ukrainian Nationalist Defense Group should have the protection of free speech and association. But we're really going to dig deep, and we're going to study this issue from multiple sides. So we're going to do that with a debate. How many of you have ever participated in a structured debate? Okay. So I'm going to need to make sure I explain to you what I mean by structured, because it's not the kind of debate where I'm just going to yell at you and you're going to yell at me and whoever yells the loudest wins. No, it's not that kind of debate. It's really going to be a very peaceful exchange, but what we're trying to do is win the argument, which is what you try to do in a debate. So we're going to have very specific roles. We will have two teams. One team will be the affirmative, and the affirmative will agree with this statement. Okay, so the affirmative is in the agreement. The other team is the negative, and they're disagreeing with that statement. Within your teams, you will also have two groups. One group presents your initial arguments, and the other presents what's called a rebuttal. Do you know what a rebuttal means?
Yes.
It's an opportunity to answer and criticize the other team's argument. So the way the debate is structured is after you've had time to prepare, you prepare statements that you can deliver in 3 minutes, no more than 3 minutes. And the first side will get up and they will say, we, the affirmative team, feel, and you make your argument. You must use examples, evidence, data, anything that you can, anything from the readings or anything you know, as long as it's factually accurate. You can't just make things up, okay? After the first team presents, the other team will present. Same thing. They present their initial arguments, only what they prepared. They are not arguing what the first team said. Okay, so you just present your initial arguments. After that, we'll take a 5-minute break, and during those 5 minutes, you're preparing your rebuttal. So think about it. The rebuttal is your chance to criticize the other team's arguments and say why it's weak. So what should you be doing while you're listening to the initial arguments?
Because we need to build our criticizing.
Absolutely, yes. So that's why I'm saying you should have members of your team who are preparing the rebuttal, and while one group is presenting, the other members are listening carefully and writing down the points and making sure that you're ready to form that criticism. Okay? So after those 5 minutes, then each side will again have about 2 minutes to present their rebuttal. Both sides sit down, and then we hand it over to the judges, and the judges decide who won the debate. Now, the judges are going to have to decide who won the debate based on 2 criteria. First is, did you use evidence effectively? So you can't just say, oh, it's my opinion, oh, I think. You have to give evidence, examples. Okay? So that's the first thing they're judging. The second thing is, were you persuasive? So did you really make a strong case? Did you really argue for it? Okay, so were you persuasive? So those are the two things that the judges will make their decision on. So I'm going to divide you up into your teams now, and then I will give you the materials to read. As I said, the first one is a case study from the US, and then the second one is about the current situation here in Ukraine. After that, I'll give you time to prepare, and then we will get ready for the debate. At this point, you need to divide the class into 3 groups. However, the groups will not be equal in size. You need one team of judges who will evaluate the debate, but this must be an odd number, so in case there is a tie, the tie can be broken. You should not have more than 5 students judging, though. So for instance, if you have a class of 20 and you have 5 students as evaluators, the remaining 15 will be on either the affirmative or the negative team.
Don't start yet. Oh my goodness.
Okay, so now we're divided into our 3 groups. So we have our judges at the back table. At this table, your job will be to argue the affirmative. So you are in favor of our resolution, whereas you guys will argue the negative. So you're arguing against the resolution. Now, everybody should have this handout that I gave to you. This is just to help you organize your thoughts. As you'll notice, it says you should have 3 strong arguments. So judges, that's something else. You want to make sure they present 3 arguments. And for each argument, list your argument and the evidence that you will use to build your case. Now, you might have 5 arguments, but your job then is to decide which are your best arguments. If you can get all 5 in your 3 minutes, that's fine, but always start with your strong arguments. You also always want to end with a really strong argument. So after you've identified your arguments, you can write up a little summary of what you'll say and decide who on the team will present. So for you guys, 3 people should do the original present and 3 should do the rebuttal. On this side, it's going to be 3-2. 3 to present the original, 2 to do the rebuttal. If you look on this next sheet, you'll notice that there's a rebuttal worksheet for you. As the other team is speaking, you should be writing down what was their argument. What was their argument? Write down all their arguments so that when it comes time to prepare for your rebuttal, you're ready to reference back to this and remember what they said. Okay? Anybody have any questions about what you're expected to do?
No question.
Okay, so I'm going to give you 15 minutes. Now, I want to remind you that your opening arguments are only 3 minutes each. So you have the next 15 minutes to read your background material and prepare your arguments. Okay? Okay, thank you. So the Ukrainian Nationalist Defense Group should have the protection of free speech and association. You're saying no. No, they should not.
We decide if
They have some limits. They have to.
No, you're arguing here that no, they should not have freedom of association. You're saying groups like this need to have limits. That's your argument. Now, you might not believe that, and that's okay. Because sometimes in a debate, you have to argue something
something that you don't agree to.
So you know you're arguing yes.
Yes.
Yes, they should have that
Yes.
protection. Now, you personally might not agree with that, but that's okay, because you have to make the best argument you can, even if you disagree with it. By now, I hope you have designated who your speakers are. We will hear from the affirmative first. So we will ask the speakers for the affirmative to stand. Now, I need someone to be a timekeeper. Do you have, on your phone, so you're going to set for 3 minutes, okay? So for 3 minutes, so we would like our speakers for the affirmative. And remember, there's no talking while they're speaking, but you can take as many notes as you like. Okay, so with the speakers for the affirmative, please stand.
Not all people in our government want to support our national view. According to the situation in our country, some politics want to limit our speech. Also, we need to speak with our people. We should share with our thoughts and our meanings. So we need to have free speech to share with our national views.
Our second point is that we need protection because UNSA are a small group, and UNSA, as well as Ukraine in general, and Ukrainians in general, is threatened by Russia and those who support Russia. Because UNSA is for Ukrainians, and because they stand for a free, independent Ukraine, they are threatened by the ideology that we stand for, and we need protection from others who do not exactly agree with us. Because we might not agree with us, but we have the right to exist, and we have the right to be protected.
Okay, we have a very tense situation in the country. This is very disturbing to political stability, and because of this, the economic and social and cultural life of the state is also suffering. And Russia is a very powerful military country, and if we don't get support other countries, our country will simply disappear.
Argument 1. Their free speech impedes on our freedom. So evidence that is people on our nationalities feel not safe living in Ukraine.
Our second argument is that free speech of the Ukrainian National Defense Group actually causes violence. Within the United States, we saw that the free speech of the KKK was upholded, but only because their speech didn't cause violence. However, as shown in 2005, when the Ukrainian National Defense Group bombed the Parliament building, their free speech and their call to action is actually causing people to take violent actions. And this led to the death of 4 people and injured over 100 people. So I think we can all agree that this is a very violent act and that their speech is really causing people to be injured. So the free speech and the right to association of the Ukrainian National Defense Group is actually halting the forward progress of Ukraine as a whole.
Why they don't have to have protection of free speech? Because they can speak, but with limits. They also can share their thoughts if they want to, but with limits.
Support of people, it's not a problem for people who live in this country. It's a problem for government. It's government may care about safe for all people who live in the country.
And the third one, you told that if you not protect the country, nobody will protect this. But nowadays, all political parties support common idea of independence of Ukraine from Russia and try to go to the European Union. And if we have results like this, we will get a support from other countries and have like friends for fighting with
That's right.
Russia. Yeah, it's not independent from Russia. It depends in general because we are an independent country.
First of all, we want to criticize another comment.
To the first argument concerning freedom of speech, I want to say that we all know that for last 25 years, Ukraine aspires to democracy. And as the freedom of speech is unavailable part of democratic society, we think that rights of any group of people united by common views, especially if those of those who represent and popularize national interests, must be safe.
And for your second argument, protection against violence, I want to say that we need protection to prevent violence to us. So if we don't have this protection, somebody like Russia-oriented people or people from Russia can go in Ukraine and kill us or prevent our activities like different demonstrations, different actions on the streets. So we need this.
So, okay, third argument was that free speech is without protection is a progress for our country. So we think that we can't talk about Ukrainian progress if people who are real Ukrainians, if people who can do anything for this country is scared. And is there any sense if the people scared and know that they are unprotected, and if they live with the idea that they can be killed in every moment when they go to the supermarket, or when old man take his granddaughter and talk it to the school? We are really scared and we need protection, especially from our government.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, so everyone may sit now. So now we want to give our judges a moment to tally up their scores. So what I would like for the rest of you to do is to think right now about what did you learn from this activity? What skills did you have to use? What did you have to do to make a good argument? So take a minute, think about that. You can talk at your tables with each other while we let the judges discuss.
England, Canada, England, USA.
How soon do you think you'll have a decision?
When you're debating substance work,
How many people felt that you were in the position of arguing a side that you didn't totally agree with? Can I see just hands? How many of you felt that way? It was more on this side. You guys you agreed with your position, and for you guys it was a little bit harder. Okay, do you think it was valuable to argue a position you didn't agree with?
I'm not totally agree. I agree, but it's some part of this discussion. But a different position help you to analyze and walking in others' shoes, you know?
Yes, exactly. Yes, walking in someone else's shoes, exactly. So this is very real, that in a society you're going to have people who feel very strongly this way and people who feel very strongly this way. What should lawmakers do when the public isn't in full agreement? So I said in society we often have disagreements like this. And so some people will be strongly in favor of one law, others against it. So what should the policymakers and the lawmakers do when there's not total agreement among the people?
Find a middle. We have to create a compromise.
Find a middle, create a compromise. Okay, so we will be doing an activity where we'll get a chance to see that. So at this point, now I want to be very clear. The judges have been very carefully instructed that they can only judge based on the evidence that they heard and how persuasive you were. They're not choosing based on their own personal decision. So that's very important to know. They're also not choosing who their friends are and whether or not they like you. So let's hear what the judges have to say.
Okay, we had to discuss, and we had two parts of abrogated. It's your presentation and it's your rebuttal.
What's better in presentation? Because you have more arguments, more examples, and you said about Ku Klux Klan. At the same time, from the left group, I didn't hear about Ku Klux Klan. But in rebuttal, you was more confident and more cool. I don't know. So in rebuttal, I think you was better, but in presentation was better your team.
So how we can say the winner is the right group, so group number 2, because as my colleague said, they have more arguments, better organization and understanding of the topic and delivery, so they are winner.
Okay, thank you very much. So, congratulations, but, okay. I do want to talk for a minute then, because I think that everybody could pick out something they did really well and something that they can improve on. So the last thing I would have you do is to do a little self-summary about what you think you did well and what next time. So I would say I agree with the judges that maybe more evidence, like specific evidence, especially because you did have some background reading. And I would also agree that responding more directly to their critique in the rebuttal. So I think the judges gave you excellent feedback, and I think then you could all think about next time, what will you try to work on to improve?